I look forward to like creating memories with them and things that either we got to do as kids and now it's like cool being on the parent end of things, and then like creating new memories of stuff that we've always wanted to do or something that we just fall upon, like, oh, we're going to start doing this. And it becomes a tradition that we just fell upon it and weren't planning it. And I think it's just cool. Like, I was talking with one of my guests at the salon today about how parenting is so cool and so interesting, but so hard at the same time. And I try not to think of the hard stuff. I just think of the daily, like, we're forming him to be like a good person and taking what we've learned from our lives and to help him be his own person, but also encourage him to be his own person. And, you know, we're not going to say, you have to do this. Like, I don't know. It's just so cool. So I look forward to watching him grow up and our new little one that's coming, what she's going to do and how they interact with each other. Because I have an older sister, but you didn't have any siblings. So it'll also be fun for me to watch you see that interaction between them, because that's going to be a whole new world for you of as a parent and just seeing how siblings are, because I understand some of those weird compromises and just dynamics of always fighting but not actually hating each other, and you never got that. So it'll be fun to watch that happen. And if our family keeps growing, then cool, and if not, cool. Like, it'd be fun to see where we are in the next 10, 20 years with our lives and our kids and
I think
puppers.
Oh yeah, and the dogs too. I think it's interesting too. Just I was talking about this today on one of my shoots. Somebody was asking like, "What's the adjustment been like having a kid and everything?" It's like your whole life stops for 6 months to figure out how to take care of an infant, and once they start to sleep through the night, then you start reintroducing parts of your life of who you were before. I think that's been kind of the most interesting transition around, is like, for me personally, like my gym schedule, my work schedule, when to cook, when you eat, when you go out with friends, like social time, which doesn't happen hardly ever anymore. But it's stuff like that. Just, I think the adjustment of like who you were before, and then as you come out the other side, like who you are now and like what you're interested in. And I know we've made a really big focus personally just to like still be ourselves and still prioritize our marriage and like time with each other and time by ourselves and like those things, because so many people lose themselves when they start having children, and then they look up 10 years later and they're like, look in the mirror, like, who the hell is this old person in my clothes, you know?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting as a woman too, because you hear other women talk about like being a mom and how it changes you, and it not only physically but mentally. And the physical is the hardest part, I think, of just being a mom, is you don't look the same, and even if you do look the same, you don't feel the same. Because just with talking with my best friend over the weekend, she's teeny tiny, and to me she looks the same, but she's like, no, I have extra skin that I didn't have before. And even though to me she still looks fantastic, her son's 4, and I don't feel like that for myself. But she's like, you're in that era, you're in your mom era, like we all go through it.
Bless up, baby.
But it's just interesting. You hear other women talk about it and you don't know what that feels like or what that looks like for yourself until you go through it. And that's such a hard challenge. And I know it's hard for Ryan too, because you're having to deal with me feeling these ways that I do about myself. And you're like, you're still my wife. You're still beautiful. Like, you created our son and now you're creating another one. Like, you're doing awesome. Like, that's really cool. And so it's a cool dynamic between the two of us too, of like, you're always trying to help boost my confidence, and I appreciate that.
Sure. Well, and especially right now, it's like your Roan's a year old, you're pregnant with our second. Like, by the time you would get right where you want to look, you're going to start looking the way you don't want to look again. So it's like, it's kind of like that. Okay. It's okay to,
I'm in my mom era.
Yeah. Going through that, like just the yo-yoing in good weight, in terms of pregnancy weight and stuff like that. So it's always a challenge there.
Yeah.
I think it's just interesting too, just the dynamics of how we've grown as people, because we have to now not only just be together in a relationship, but now we have to like co-parent this small human and put all that together. So I think that's been kind of an interesting challenge of life and how things are kind of progressing along the way.